Hello, everyone. This is Astrid Alvarez, and I'm presenting my professional development project over diagnostic assessments in the secondary ELA classroom. First, the literature review. Literacy deficit diagnosis testing stops at the 8th grade, even though approximately half of the incoming 9th grade students in high poverty urban schools read at a 6th or 7th grade level. My own school that I am at is considered a high poverty school, so this is an important statistic to me. IRIs, or informal reading inventories, and CARIs, or content area reading inventories, are informal and administered on an individual basis and are specifically used to measure a student's reading rate and comprehension skills for the express purpose of informing future instruction. CARIs can be administered piecemeal over several class sessions so that large chunks of instructional time will not be sacrificed. I know that this is something that a lot of teachers are concerned about, especially when they have, 150 students, and the idea of individually testing each one is quite overwhelming and frankly not pragmatic. Teachers estimate their students' abilities to comprehend text material at the literal, inferential, and applied levels of comprehension. So basically, the types of questions that are going to be on a secondary reading inventory are leveled comprehension questions so that it's easier to identify where students are having issues, and therefore it's more targeted and more efficient. Pairing results from diagnostic exams with STAR data from the previous year provide a more complete idea of students' instructional reading levels and/or areas of deficit. The next step would be to identify what interventions and instructional strategies are appropriate to use in the classroom. Now, each school should have a targeted reading program, but for those of us like me who do not, this is something that would have to be added into the professional development. PD objectives. The purpose of this workshop is to understand how diagnostic testing can help raise reading comprehension in secondary English language arts classrooms. Now, CARIs are not for general content, so they're not specifically for English, but I think that it's really useful to not just teach this to English teachers, but also to other content areas as well, because literacy needs to be supported across content areas in order for any literacy program to be effective. The outcomes. To create an informal reading inventory, to identify sample students' reading instructional level based on their IRI and STAR results, to review instructional strategies and intervention plans, and to plan collaboratively with grade level teams in order to implement diagnostic testing in the classroom. Session 1. I have 5 sessions because that was in the expectations. However, I do not think that this would work with only 5 sessions. I could probably have stretched it to 1 more. But session 1 would just be an overview of diagnostic testing in the lower grades, K through 8. So we're going to look at workshop objectives, expected outcomes, what diagnostic assessments are available and what they look like. And then I have kind of like 4 questions we need to be able to answer. What is the purpose of diagnostic testing? What are the limitations of standardized assessments? What are IRIs and CARIs, and why and how are they used in the elementary classrooms? And then how can we use them in secondary English classrooms? So that last one would kind of be like a brainstorming session, where people would kind of present their ideas. Session 2, analyzing sample IRI and CARI results. So we're going to review, we're going to look at 3 samples and understanding the results and how to interpret them, because those can be kind of confusing. And then we're going to pair some sample STAR results with sample diagnostic results and analyze what the data reveals about the student's instructional level, their reading deficits, if any, and possible instructional supports that will fit their needs. For a for a workshop, especially for maybe new teachers or teachers who are not in the do not have an English background, I would probably give them a list of instructional supports or things that they could do in the classroom that maybe, some of the more trained teachers are already doing. So I would have to do some preloading and pre-observing before doing this workshop. Session 3, identifying text readability. So in order to construct an IRI or a CARI, the teachers must first find texts that are appropriate for the grade level that they teach, because unlike in elementary and middle school where there's actual leveled texts already available, they don't really have that as much in secondary schools. So they need to understand how to do this themselves. So we're going to review readability formulas using the Lexile levels, which also have some limitations, and also using a Frye graph to identify text grade level scores. Our next session, session 4, would be constructing a sample IRI. So I would give them a leveled text. I would find leveled text for each one. In my case, it would be 9th through 12th grade. And then we would construct an IRI. So we're going to go through the procedures suggested in Content Area Reading, Literacy, and Learning Across the Curriculum, which is a book in my resources list at the end. So the authors suggest this procedure here. So they're going to select a text, which I already did, count the number of words in the excerpt, read the excerpt, and formulate 10 to 12 comprehension questions, and these will be leveled. Now, I'm probably going to give them examples of leveled questions. And then they're going to create the student response sheet. Again, because this is a sample, I'm probably going to give them a blank one that they just fill in. And then they're going to answer the questions themselves, and we're going to have kind of a talk through of what they've seen, how they feel about constructing the test themselves, and so on and so forth. Session 5. This is the one where I really think that I could kind of have breakout sessions, but this is instructional strategies and collaborative planning. So they're going to review different instructional strategies or methods for students with reading deficits. For one would be instructional level grouping or reading workshop method, and the reading workshop method. We're actually implementing a school-wide reading workshop push, I guess, this year. So this is especially interesting and useful for my teaching experience. Implementation of an explicit instructional approach to phonemic awareness, spelling patterns, and morphology can provide automatic word recognition in ELLs and students whose reading levels are grades below what they should be. And then I could look at different intervention programs such as Words Their Way, which have also worked with 9th grade and 10th grade students who, have issues with automized word recognition. Once we finish reviewing the instructional strategies, and I would have handouts for them and everything, they could break off into grade level teams where they plan how to apply the newly acquired knowledge to their own classrooms. And the expectation would be that at some point I would schedule a time to walk the different grade levels to see how they're implementing these diagnostic assessments, and do some coaching if I were the reading specialist. I do have a PD evaluation. I have the little QR code for a Google form, and then I also have this link right here for the people who, for some reason, their phones aren't working or anything like that. I'll have this printed out, but this is what the evaluation form looks like. So they have the email address where they're going to put, and then they have questions. Objectives of the workshop were clearly communicated. Content was clearly organized and is easy to follow. The workshop contained information that is useful, and so on and so forth. And then they have an area where they can do additional comments, questions, or suggestions. And then grade level content area, what do they teach? And the reason why I added that is because, as I said, I think it would be ideal to not just use this with English, but to also use this with other content areas where it's very reading heavy. Because again, literacy push is not useful if it's only done in English, because we only see them for a very small part of the day. So that's that. Now for the QR code, if you have a QR reader or if you have Snapchat, you can just take a picture of this and the form will automatically open up for you. So if you guys would want to try that, just pause this video and you should be able to do that. If there's any issues, please let me know. And lastly, there are my references. I used some books that we have been exposed to in other classes, like diagnosis and correction of reading problems, and also content area reading. And I thought those were very useful. So please give me feedback over this presentation. Thank you very much, and I hope that this was done correctly. Thank you.